It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Leon Eliezer Mordechai Blumenfeld. We're here in Yerushalayim, but you've come from Vancouver, Canada. We're here, it's over Pesach, and it's such an honor and a privilege to see you this morning. And Leon, if you could mention a little bit about your family, your roots, your time in Siberia during the war, you'd so appreciate it.
So maybe I should start to say that I was born in a city called Seversk in Ural Mountains in March 4th, 42, which happened to be a Shushan Purim day. So connect to Yerushalayim, Shushan Purim. So my parents, we start maybe with the grandparent, whose name was Moshe Yeshurun Blumenfeld, and he died in Holocaust, and he was a Chassid. He was he was in a group in Poland called Henchiner Hasidim. It was a group which I think was a part of the Alexandria Hasidim first, and then it's branched out to Henchiner, and Henchiner Rebbe moved to Krakow from Henchin, and then his and the followers there they had their own shtibel in Krakow, which we saw it after the war. I saw this one, and what I know, the whole group perished in Holocaust. The whole group of this. My father, who saw what was happening once the Germans came, he took my mother and ran to east, to Russia. They crossed the river Bug, which was in that time in 1939. Russia took over Ukraine, and they kind of, this river was now between Germans and Russia, and the Russian capture was a whole group. It was my aunt Sonia Schendel, the Blumenfeld, was her how do you say, not a boyfriend, but they already were engaged.
Fiance?
Yeah, fiance, yeah, he was here.
Can I ask,
Sure.
where were your parents living? Were they in Krakow?
In Krakow, yeah, in Krakow. Now my father was born in Proszowice, which is about, I've been there to look at them. There's 26 kilometers from Krakow. So it was a small town, and there was between them there was a city called Działoszyce, which was kind of more bigger city, and that was Krakow. So in the middle was and there was between them, it was like a train, but it was on they call this in Polish wąsko torówka. It's like it's much smaller, so just little train going between these two cities, Krakow and this how people travel in those days. And the Proszowice had beautiful synagogue right in the center of the city, and there was a cemetery which I looked right because there was some of my ancestor was there. What I know that in 1936 my grandfather, which had 7 children in the time, his wife passed away, and so he moved to Krakow in that time, from Proszowice to Krakow. So when the war broke down in 1939, he was in Krakow. He is in Yad Vashem, by the way. He's a plaque or something. I don't know. My father told me that there is. His name is there. It was recognizable. Actually, I should prepare myself because I have the picture of him from Yad Vashem. Maybe I'll show you later, right? There's something. So my grandfather didn't want to leave. You know, he was asked that they should go together. My grandfather didn't want to leave. His older son, his name was Abraham Noah. That's his Hebrew name, Abraham Noah. He called himself Alan. Here at least, on this. He stayed kind of with him, and but he was taking. He was married and had a daughter, which was killed on the street by the Nazis. Yeah, his wife. He told me that he saw it with his own eyes. That his wife. He ended up in Płoszów, you know, in a camp there, in a war camp, and from there he was taken to Auschwitz, and he ended up on the end of the war in Blumenfeld. That's where he served. 4 years he was in camps, and his story is recording he came back to Poland, and he met the lady in Buchenwald. And they made kind of shidduch together. She was married but didn't have children before the war, and she was 100% that her husband was killed, but she didn't have proof to it. So they made it's not totally halakhic proper, but I'll say it, right? So they made a deal. We'll get married. My uncle knew that his wife was perished, and the daughter. So they made the deal. Then they will get married, and they both of them went back to Krakow after the war, and if she says, if my husband will show up, I'll leave you and I'll go back to the husband. So so they went back to Krakow, and she was more, her name was Jenny, Genia, right, in Polish. She was more kind of a doer, you know. She really accomplish, right, a lot. So when she went she went to buy some food on this, and there was on a market there was form, and there was she came in, and she was blonde. You couldn't recognize that she was Jewish, and this lady who was selling her a live chicken, right, told her, "I'd rather sell to you than any Jew," you know. So, and that's trigger to her, you know. She says, "No, we cannot stay here." So they ran to west, and they end up in DVP camp, how they call it, right? In France, and then from there they moved to Israel, and they had a girl. They have a daughter who born to them, and in 1952 they decided they got a sponsor in Canada, and they decided to move to Vancouver. And so that's to finish the story. Unfortunately, when we came to Vancouver, when we left Poland, I'll get to why we left, but when we left Poland, Uncle, we went to live in Vancouver just because of him, and in that time, unfortunately, the daughter, they only had this one daughter, Esti, and she got sick, and she passed away age 28. She had 28. So, but she was married with the Jewish fellow, last name Field, and they had one son, Micah. Michael, it's a Micah, who lives today in Edmonton, and fortunately not married with Jewish person.
Did her husband ever come back? Her first husband?
No. There was. It was obvious that and her name was, I think, Kaufman. This husband name was Kaufman. Yeah, I remember. And after this, when the daughter passed away, they had very nice business. You know, they were making leather jackets but she lost all the will to live, you know, and she got a cancer. 8 years later she passed away also, yeah. And so that was my parents was running with the group of people out from Poland. Like I said, they crossed the River Bug, and the Russian captured them, right, and then.
Did they leave straight when the Germans came in, when they invaded?
No, they were still for a while, until Germans really built a little bit. So I am even not sure it was 1940 or 39, or maybe end of 39 when they left. My father had good feeling that the German is not for good, you know, which is that's why lots of Jews in that time ran east, right, to Russia. So, but Russians soldiers send them back to the German side now, to the side of this. So they wait another night, and they cross at night, and this time they walk they walk east as far they could go, and during the day they hide in lasach, jak się mówi?
Fields and in the
What?
forest.
In the forest, yeah. They hide in the forest and they walk at night. It took 2 weeks before they were captured again. And by that time, they were far enough that the Russians didn't send them, but they so-called they had to volunteer to be shipped to basically most of them to Siberia. They end up in Ural Mountains. Was on then they called volunteers, which then I was born in 1942. I didn't know that I had sister which was born before me, and she was probably less than 2 years old. She passed away. So, the things when we came here and started to get involved with the Yiddishkeit and this, then I thought I was firstborn on this until I found out from my mother, who meantime already was here moved to Tel Aviv from Poland. Then that's how I found out that no, there was somebody before me. Don't even know the name of this.
And do you know how she died? Did your parents ever tell you?
No. If she was less than 2 years old, I presume there wasn't easy to survive the winters there. My mother told me stories, some the way we lived there in this. My father was by profession a tailor, so which was being over there, it was a good profession, right? Because everybody needs clothing, right? So so there was, he considered, my mother, they were shipped in Siberia. Seversk it's a small town near Sverdlovsk, which was the capital of that region, right? And Sverdlovsk and Seversk was just, there was an ammunition factory where she was working there in this ammunition, and the food was Russian. Yeah, so they was very tough life. And she told me once that she had a ring, the marriage ring. She sold it and could buy a sack of potatoes. So that's how tough it is. The worst part was, she told me always, was this bed bugs. They were living in a wood barracks, and they were sitting in the walls. During the day you didn't see them, but at night they were coming out, and they were scrolling on the ceiling, and they felt the warm person, right? So they were just jump on it, and so to kill them, what they used to do, they took bag of water and they put under each leg on the in a bed, under because these bugs were crawling out, and then and they were, if they fell into the water, she says every morning was full of them, right? And just she told me the story how life, but they were safe, at least if it comes. They were working for the government, and later on my father was taken to Russian army. For some reason, when they wrote on his papers, when they came there, they wrote on his papers that he was born in Krakow, Ukraine, as a oblast, as a how to say, state, Ukraine they wrote. So they consider him a Russian, and he was taken to the Russian army, and don't know which year, but I had another sister was born in 1944 in July, so I could imagine it was maybe end of 43 or something. At that time he was taken to the army. That was and after he was there to the end of the war in the army. Something happened to him, and which he never told me this, what happened to him. But after the war, he ended up in Irkutsk. I don't know if you know where the city is, but Irkutsk is close to Vladivostok. It's really deep in Siberia, very deep, very close to Vladivostok, in the deep there. He had one of his brother, his name was Haim, Hamek they called him, was also there, but he was there from beginning of the war. He was there from beginning of the war, and he and what I know, he died in 1951, was basically assassinated by the Russians. Yeah, he was a really kind of communist who really believed in a communism, right? So I had a wife, not Jewish, 4 children, and I didn't meet any of them. So,
do you know why he was assassinated?
I don't think Stalin liked communists, real communist, real somebody who really believed in. I don't think it was in he was dictator, and if something wasn't right, he rather. My father told me that was the truck ran him over. So I cannot imagine too many trucks in the in a city, in the Irkutsk. It wasn't big town in those days, so it was an accident, right? It was, so he left his wife, 4 children in Irkutsk. My father, when he was on end of the war, wrote the letter to my mother that they could meet in Ukraine. In that time I was 3-year-old, 1945, and my sister was 1-year-old, and my mother, Aunt Sonia, and her now husband, I'm sure, was Ziga, his name was. they travel by the train, which took over a month to travel from, and that was the train. Wasn't just like a train. There was just boxes, cattle cars, right, where they live. And each place they stopped, they were searching for some food, and she told me they had a little fire made up in the middle of the inside. There was a wooden tray. I don't know how this worked out. My sister cried non-stop. Non-stop. My mother told me that she had to be hold on hand like day and night, and I was a good boy. I was,
Do you have any recollections, or do you remember anything from?
No, only what I heard from my mother about this trip back. I don't have 3 years. The first recollection I had that we arrived in Poland. My mother waited about a year, but my father never showed up. So my father, for some reason, ended up in Irkutsk on this. And so my mother came to Poland, and most Jews from Russia was shipped to the west, because the whole Poland was shifted to the west. The parts of Ukrainian was taken by Russia, the whole Ukraine, and this river Bug again became border between Russia and Poland, and the western part of Poland was given to western part of Germany was given to Poland, and the German city called Breslau became Wrocław. That was the city, and that's where we end up. My mother came with 2 children, and we had a little apartment in Wrocław on a street called Zendrama Zmaszkowic. It was like an old king or something. And this I have recollection because when we came to this apartment, almost across the street, and there was a building still burning. Yeah, so it was the Wrocław was there was, when the war was over in 7th or 9th of May, when they stopped already fighting, Wrocław was still defending themselves. It was really right, and so the Russian bombarding this horribly. It was just leveled. The whole city was just leveled on this. So when we came in, there was. I remember a fire.
And this is one of your earliest recollections?
Early recollection on this, yeah, in that time. So, so they were, the Polish government wasn't eager really to rebuilding much. It was a big city before the war, you know. Wasn't that eager to rebuild. So there was buildings which was in ruins for years and years, because there was still talking that maybe Germany will take it back, you know, and this. So the Polish government more concentrated in a city like Warsaw, which was also totally ruined. So that was priority. Krakow was the city which survived probably the best, right? And because it had so much history, and somehow even Germans didn't destroy the Krakow. And in Proszowice, the Jewish cemetery survived. Yeah, and so. Going back to Wrocław, you know, when my mother got a job in Jewish preschool as attendant or whatever. She was, you know, with the small kids, and we lived this for a while. There was some correspondence between my father, who was in Siberia in Irkutsk, and my mother. This I heard, and basically they were separating, and they were divorced. Or how this halachically worked out, I am not sure. Today I am looking from point of, you know, halacha, but in those days everything was so mingled. My father found another woman there in Irkutsk, not Jewish. And he stayed there for till 1955. In 1955, he moved to Rostov-na-Donu, the city in Russia, more south, and he had 2 sons with her. And I first met him in 1957. He came to Poland, and he came to see us and Sonia, and she lived in that time in a city called Szczecin, which is by the Baltic Sea, and he was 57. There was a revolution in Poland. It basically was historically was 3 times really where the Jews were allowed to leave Poland. It was first in 48 when Israel was formed, and there was quite a large number of people left in that time, and my mother wanted also to leave, but it was she received some not the pleasant letters from it. It was very tough here in Israel, and we saw what was going on here, and she received the letters from her friends. That's it's very tough, and she decided to stay in Poland. So the next was in 56. There was in Poland revolution. That was the government was turned over, but the Russian managed to put another man in charge. His name was Gomulka, was his last name, and he and the border was open again for Jews in Lviv. And in that time, in 57, my uncle Zyga, right, the husband of Sonia, he was involved with the Communist Party there, and he was afraid for his life in that time. He told me that he slept with the gun under his pillow, you know, because he was so afraid. And he had a high position in this hierarchy in the city of Szczecin. Actually, they lived in a villa next to Swedish embassy. So you know, it was part of a new Polish echelon, right? So he made Aliyah, and he decided to run from Poland, and he came and they settled in Nazareth, Illit. In that time it was a young city, right? And he had to learn Hebrew, and he changed his outlook, became a Zionist, and then my aunt was also involved with New Orleans and on this. She lived she works in this, and after a while it wasn't easy. First he had to find himself as physical jobs before he knew Hebrew enough, and he became a teacher, history teacher in a high school, and then eventually he became principal of the school. So we had correspondence. We had some letters with Aunt Sonia, and she, in the beginning, was tough, you know, and they moved in 58, they moved. So it was still Israel was in a rebuilding stage, right? So we remember it. And she was, it was tough for her, and she wrote a letter to my mother, and guess what? We still didn't move, you know.
So, Leon, I want to ask you, when did you meet your father? In what year?
57 he came.
57. So can I ask, how was that encounter? Was it a very emotional encounter when you met your father?
I really didn't recollect emotional, you know. I was kind of reserved, yeah. I couldn't put the story together, you know. My mother told me when I grew up that he was killed, he died, and she married also with the survivor who was, she remarried second time with survivor who came from Kishinev. He was before the war he lived in a city called Beijing in Silesia, and he was a shochet. He was worked as a shochet, yeah. And his whole family perished. And so when he came, he was a very broken man. He was much older than my mother, and I understand it was just marriage for convenience, because my mother really always had a feeling for my father. She never, you know, they married, she was 18, you know, so she was always, till she passed away, you know, here in Tel Aviv, she always had, actually maybe I jumped to this, that my father came in 1985 to Vancouver to visit me, and from there he made Aliyah he went to in that time there was a representative in Vancouver, was a Shaliah and he went to see him, and Shaliah arranged everything. So from Russia he came with Tamara, was his wife, and they made Aliyah.
And their sons?
Pardon me?
Their children, their sons?
and he bring the children here. Yeah, they brought the children here.
And did you connect with your half brothers?
I did connect with them a little bit because in '57, when he came in, he invited me to come to Rostov. So in that time, he only invited me, not my sister. And so I went there. I was there in 1959, and I was there in 1961. I visited him, and then I got married in '65, and 66 we went together, me and my wife, to Rostov.
And was your father at your wedding?
No. We had very small kind of, went to city hall and just then. And that time I did know nothing about Judaism, really. You know, it's my mother first put me into the Yiddish school. There was like Yiddish. There was parrots, and you know, there was a lot in Poland in those days. Every city had this parrots school. There was a Jewish community, and she sent me there, and in first grade, and after the first grade, she took me out, put to the Polish school.
Tell us a little bit about your mother. Where she came from, who her family was.
Well, I had a recollection. My mother always told me that she was born in Kielce. On this, now I find out that she was born in a city called Spadina, which is more closer to Proszowice. So maybe that was connection with my father. I had a great grandfather in Kielce. His name was Yeheskel, and he was Torah scholar. He wrote Torah, and some of them, his Torah are here in Israel.
Wow.
And somebody told me they saw his Torah in New York also. But here in Israel, my aunt Sonia. In the time she was already in an old age home, and she met the guy, and he couldn't believe it. It was an old man, also survivor, and he couldn't believe it. He says, "You are Yeheskel granddaughter? You are Yeheskel granddaughter? You have, you know, we cherish his scroll was written. It was in our synagogue. You know, he told this." So he was well known, and he lived, and actually the Uncle Alan, he was in Heider in Kielce also. So there was some connections between Kielce and Kraków and Proszowice, you know, and this. But so. When we came and we were staying in Ukraine, there was a huge pogroms in Kielce, well known in '46, and my mother used to spit on the floor each time she heard the word Kielce, you know. So it was just like, for her was after the pogrom, and then we moved to.
So Leon, could you mention, because there are a lot of people that don't know, could you mention a little bit about the pogrom of Kielce, what you recall or what you heard?
Well, you just have to Google. You will know what it is. There was survivors of the Holocaust. They went back just to look for things, you know, and the Polish populace thought that they wanted to demand their houses and this. So one night they killed, I think it was 146 Jews died, and there was broken people after the war. It was just trying to find or relatives, or try to find this, and the mob was just I don't know who put them up onto this, but they brutally killed. It's not like they shot them. They was just beat them to death. These people, was there. There was more pogroms in the eastern coast. We had a friend which we used to invite him for Shabbos, and he was a professor of nutrition, and who was born in the city Rzeszów, and eventually he moved back to Israel. He spent some time in Israel, but then he got PhD in Berkeley. Bright guy, but he only came for Yom Kippur to the shul. But he kind of got me, a liking of me, I was involved more with Chabad now in the time, and so we kept inviting him every Shabbos, to come. He didn't come every Shabbos, but interesting that one time I went for Mincha Mariv to in Vancouver. There's the regular synagogue called Sharat Tzedek. I went there for Mincha Mariv, and then I saw him there. I knew that he wouldn't step to the shul. He wouldn't step because his survival was something, a miracle. How he survived he was born in 1933, so he was 6-year-old during the war. So. And actually, he wrote his story. So I read his story. But when what's his name? So I said, "What are you doing here?" Yes. He says, "It's my father Yortzeit."
Wow.
It's my father Yortzeit, he told me. So I was blown up, how it's possible.
But Leon, can I ask, when your mother remarried, she remarried a shochet?
After the war, he was a shoemaker, became shoemaker.
But was he from? Was he religious?
No, he stopped everything. Yeah.
He stopped it.
And
was he kind to you? Was he a good man?
Good man. Yeah, he was a good man, but very separate from me. We didn't have much in common together. But he was, he was provider. So my mother stopped working because she had twins with him. The twins live here, and one Yosef never married. He lived in Tel Aviv, and Fela was her name is Tzipora Feigel. She was named after my mother's mother, Sarah Feigel, and so she lives in Rishon LeZion.
And did your mother have any Shabbat? Did she light candles? Did she have any Shabbat?
No. The only thing I could say, we had chicken soup every day, and ate part of the chickens from the soup. That was the daily. I don't recall any other dinners over my.
And did you know you were Jewish?
Oh yeah, no, there was no question about this.
Did you have any...
in Poland, everybody knew that you are Jewish. You don't advertise, you don't say anything.
And then when you went to the Polish school, did any of the other kids, did they have any anti-Jewish feeling towards you, or?
There was quite few Jewish boys and girls at that school. Yeah, there was quite few. There was a kind of like a lyceum, so it was 12 grade school. I stayed there till grade 7, and after my mother decided that she's going to put me into the vocational school, so that I should start making a living.
And did you have Polish friends as well?
I had. All my friends were kind of Polish, yeah. And, there was, we didn't have nothing there. We didn't practice anything. There was nothing. There was no Shabbat. There was no Pesach. No Yom Kippur. Nothing.
You had Bar Mitzvah?
No. I actually had Bar Mitzvah in Vancouver. They made me Bar Mitzvah when Shalia came to Vancouver, the Chabad Shalia. So first thing he did, I met him yearly, and he had he advertised some lectures, and my wife says, "Oh, they talking something about Judaism. Why don't you go and listen to him?" There was just he came in, and he was in a college, so we had to. So I paid that. It was like a course he did on Judaism. So that's the first thing I heard about Judaism. So after this, they finished like a semester, and then he stopped, but then he was start making classes in his place where he lived, and of course he called me and he said, "Do you want to come?" and this. So I came, and by that time we were already a little more involved, because when we came from Poland, we came with two boys, Aaron and Shimon. And Aaron, the older one, you met him. He extremely bright. So he was 5-year-old. He was already reading. So he was saying to us that he wants to go to school. He doesn't want to go to kindergarten. So the public school didn't want to take him, and so we had to decide. So we decided private school. The only place was the Talmud Torah. There was a Jewish school, and we went to see the principal. And he was a really famous guy, Pinchas Bach, his name was. And he says, "We will test him if he is ready." So they test him. I didn't think he knows any English, right? He was, because he was between us, just the kids grabs English so fast, just being around in an English-speaking country. The principal says, "No, he is ready. He is ready. So we'll take him to the first grade." And he was told. My wife told him, when you go, you sit and you do what the teacher says. And he was ahead of the class from the time. Even he skipped grade 7 also, because he was already so advanced, So hopefully we're planning to make Aliyah here this year, hopefully, and I'm sure Aaron will follow. You always dream about. You know how he.
But you have a lot of family living in Israel. A lot of family.
So I have. It's interesting. So my sister married. Her husband passed away now, and she has 3 boys, and which 2 of them now, I don't know if they live or temporarily are in the States, and one lives here alone. Has 3 children, also 3 boys. So that's my, and then my brother lives in Tel Aviv. He lives in an apartment where was my mother's apartment. Right? So they lived together he never married. And he worked, he's retired now, but he worked in the diamond district. He was cutting diamonds, yeah.
And did you remain close with your brother?
We were in touch, but our life wasn't easy in Vancouver. Until to make a living, it's an expensive city, so it was. I think it must be in the early 90s that we first came to Israel here. Must be in the 90s. And then we traveled a few times more to Israel. My father brought his 2 sons, which were not Jewish, and Tamara was tried to convert, but I don't think she ever did. It was difficult for her to learn something, and the Rabbanut here maybe wasn't that keen to help her out. I know this Vova also kind of was between, but he married a Jewish girl and had 1 child. Was also girl. What's her name? Evelina.
And they live here.
He passed away now. The Vova passed away, and her mother also, and this Evelina's mother or wife of Vova passed away also. They lived in Nazareth, and now she lives where she lives now. I think
Ramat Gan.
Ramat Gan. She lives in Ramat Gan. She came for Seder here. Nice girl. Nice girl.
Davey, tell us about your sister, Mira.
Okay. This I have to go back to Poland, right? So I grew up with her. She was a beautiful girl, really. So she also went to the same Peretz school and was there till grade 12, and spoke Yiddish, really bright in languages. So after high school, she wanted to go become an actress, and my mother really was against this. So she went and started studying in university in Wrocław, because she wanted to go to Warsaw to actress school. My mother opposed, so she went back to study languages, but unfortunately she got sick, and officially they said it was bronchitis, and she was sick for a year and passed away in the age of 20. 1964. So she was born 44, 64, end of August, which was 22nd of Elul. Now when my parents passed away, I'm saying Kaddish for her every day. I have a pictures of her grave. She's buried in a Jewish cemetery in Wrocław. And I had a child friend, called him Dodzik, David Halberstadt. We were together in school, and also in this public school we were together, so we grew up kind of together and lived close, like a block away from each other. And he never moved out from Wrocław, and he studied physics and became a teacher in physics, and he works in a mine company as a physics specialist, or married non-Jewish person, so I think 3 kids. I think now he has a second marriage, and his mother passed away at a certain point, and actually his parents also were split during the war, and he had a second father, but when the mother passed away, she was buried in the same cemetery, and he now goes like a few times a year and cleans the grave of Mira, and she was so vibrant, so Mira, my sister, I cannot compare myself to her,
You were very close. You were very close with her.
I was close with her, but also, since I went to the school, was 3-year vocational school, and radio, television, and I started working right away after this, and I got even that we live in the same house, but I was busy with work, and so we kind of got less connected, and I was from the school I decided to go to another higher vocational level and study in the evenings also, so in the evening school, and finish this. And then I wanted to go to, actually we met each other already with my wife, and she was in that time in university doing mathematicians, and when I met her, she was starting even on master degree, which she finished. Very bright girl. So I decided maybe I will go and study philosophy. That was kind of my idea. But I was drafted to the army, the Polish army, in 1962. Why I was drafted? I was in the last year on my vocational, this higher level study, and the reason normally they wouldn't drafted me because until I would finish the school, or I would go to university. But there was a big trauma and it was a kind of situation in Cuba, and there was a Warsaw Pact, and Poland was satellite of Russia, and Khrushchev at the time he would put the bomb on you know this history, right? What happened, and we were drafted to go to Cuba on this if the war will start, you know. So I spent 2 years in the Polish army, which wasn't a picnic, believe me, because it was tough being Jewish, you know.
And people knew. They knew that you were Jewish.
It's Polish people will recognize Jew, you know, from there no such a thing that you can.
You can't hide it.
You won't be able to hide. You know, they have this. They have these things from. In '94, we made a trip, Israel and Poland, and we came in and we stay in a hotel called Warsaw, in Warsaw. We're walking out, me and my youngest one, we had after 16 years of my second son, Shimon, when we came, we really couldn't have children for only Hashem knows why. And we had a son again, him named Moshe Shuren after my grandfather. And we were with him, and he was in '94, he was born in '85, so he was 9-year-old, 8-year-old. So we were walking outside, and the guy in a lobby of hotel, somebody screams, "Hi Hitler!"
Wow.
You know, and in that time I already I didn't cut my beard, you know, and everything. So I would think I was recognizable, but my wife was trying to make me looking like a sailor, you know. I wear a shirt with the stripes and this kind of sailor things, you know. But that doesn't help, you know. They knew people call me Hi Hitler. It was later, a few years later, we were in Krakow. And we were staying. We were going through the park. Was walking from Kazimierz, from the shul. It's my wife. Somebody called Hitler, but I was more visible. I was wearing capota and hat, you know. But they called Hitler. So it's there's no way somebody can go, it won't be recognizable. There's, it's a nature of Polish people. There's so few Jews in Poland right now, you know, and most of them are. I heard number like 5,000, you know, but mostly they were. Most of them didn't know they're Jewish, but because the mother's was Jewish, right? So that's how, you know, and lots of them would discover, but Poles could point them out. It's amazing, you know, and the hatred is still there, you know. There's no Jews there, you know. Now there's a whole politics with the government now, who is also not too friendly to Jews right now.
Sadie,
yeah.
tell us about your mom, her family.
I really don't know much about this. I named after my her father. She always was saying in Yiddish, Moitre Leiser, Mordechai, Eliezer Mordechai. He said, so always was, that's how she was calling me once in a while. She was trying this, this was her father. And her mother, she told me one time that they had, when they were living in Kells, he had 2 apartment buildings, which he was renting out to people. So that's how he was making a living. Otherwise, she never
Did she have siblings before the war?
She had a brother, don't remember his first name, but her maiden name was Yutkevich, and so his name was Yutkevich, and she told me that before the war he ran to the States. So. Aaron is bugging me to really put the effort to try to find him, but don't know much about him. That lots of names were changed. And the people, my uncle's last name was spelled differently. Instead of Blumenfeld by E, they put in the papers they put A, so it's like how would you call himself Blumenfeld, but he spelled Blumanfald instead of ELD, right? So that's how he spelled. Even he knew that his proper spelling of his name. So that's how much I know. So she never mentioned, she wasn't religious. I only recollect her after the war. We didn't have nothing with religion. Of course, we knew a Jew and her, she wanted to move to Israel, and she moved in 1967, right after 6-Day War. It's like first family who left Poland in 67. So she moved, and with these 2 children. I was already married, and I stayed in Poland for 2 more years. And actually I moved to their apartment where our old apartment, that's where I moved back there. And then 2 years later we decided we're going to move out. And I went in that time to the Dutch embassy and got visa to Israel. And so the situation in Poland after around 67 became very difficult. Poland was in debt to the West, and in debt to Russia, and this Gomulka was in really trouble, and people start, because if somebody is hungry, or then he start doing something about it. So there start movement, and Gomulka really disliked the situation, which Poland in that time was more pro-Arabs and not pro-Israel, and in that time he decided that in that situation, what was in Poland, he tried to find a scapegoat, and I guess who he finds, right? So whoever was left over in Jews in the time, they opened border, and in 1969, in 68, he had it was a famous speech in March 68. Then he called Jews as a fifth column. And fifth column, you know what was mean fifth column, right? So it's back to the German and to the Second World War, because he was saying that the Jews were making bad for Poland, you know, that they, so the government started anti-Semitic programs, and you hear this on TV, you see it day in, day out. It was started like, and the Jews were losing jobs, you know, and they opened the border to let them out, to whoever want to go out. And in '69, they made announcement. There was a Polish press agency made small announcement, which was in the papers, that as of end of September 1969, the border, they didn't say for Jews, but the border is going to be closed. They didn't say for Jews, they say we're closing the borders. They never let Poles out from, you know, but they're going to close. And that's trigger, you know, because I think it's a nature of a Jew, you know, to sit on a fence, you know. Well, should I go? Should I then? Should I then? You know, it's always like this. But when we heard the border is going to be locked, so now you cannot get out, then everybody rushed, and there was when I got this visa, there was a lineup in this for the government to put the application to leave. So they didn't let you just leave. You had to renounce your citizenship. So there was a piece of paper they put for you, and they would say, when you submit paper to leave to Israel, that you was a paper to the president of Poland that you renounce your citizenship, and that was one of the things that they required. Otherwise, they wouldn't let you. And the time-wise, it was like within a week we got the paper to get out, right? And it was limited time. In that time, I had Shimon was just a few months old. He was born in '69 in February, so he was just a few months old, and it was for us travel. So my wife went and she bribed one of the officers there in police, and we got extended, and we left Poland in middle of January. So that's how far we were extended. So he was close to a year old. So it was then easier to travel with him, and Aaron was a 3-year-old, so it was easier to travel. So we went by train to Vienna, and in Vienna Sochnut met us, and they say, you are in a free country now, where do you want to go? I remember this one, where do you want to go? So I said, I have an uncle in Canada, so that's where I want to go. So they put us in a place. It wasn't hotel. It was like somebody was renting the apartment, and those few families were there. And every day we were meeting Sochnut, and they were trying to convince us, I says, look at young family, you are 26, your wife is a teacher, is a master in mathematics, and you are educated in radio, TV. That's so good for Israel, right? We'll help you out to get place and language and everything. And it was like 3 weeks like this. I kept saying no, and my wife kept coming and says, no, maybe we should go, maybe we should go, maybe we should go, but I felt, that let me try Canada. So they moved us to it was Hayas and Joint. The Joint was kind of financial. Hayas was the people who was looking after. They moved us to them, and they right away sent us to Rome. It's probably cheaper for them, and we received amount of equal to about $200, and we find the place and we had to stay. We stayed for 6 months because we didn't have a passport. That we just received tickets, train tickets, and on the train tickets it was say this person can never come back to Poland.
Really?
Yeah, it was printed that the border is. And a matter of fact, that in 1977, Renia's father got very sick, and we wanted to visit him, and they kept refusing, until again, if you know somebody and you give nice present, so they let us come for a week, and then you have no idea, on Shabbat, that time we already were involved in Yiddishkeit, and on Shabbat we knocked to the door. And the 2 guys shows up, and they said, we need to speak to you. And I said do I need my passport? Yes, you need your passport. So they were waiting outside, and I dressed, it was a morning, and I dressed and went. And she went. You know how she's emotional, right? So, we didn't know what they want from us, right? We had legit visa for 7 days, and so I went to the police, and they walked in front of me, and I went to the police, and he went to the place like this and was waiting there, and I opened one door. There was doors everywhere, right? I opened one door, and there was a wall behind the door. There was nothing. It's everywhere. It wasn't. And finally, one door opened, and they took me to another room, and there was one of the guys were there who came to pick me up, and was somebody else, and they started to asking me questions about the Rome, about what was happening at the time, and this, and I was trying just to say something polite, nothing derogatory, and I really didn't know. So they told me that that I should come following Tuesday to the bigger city, to the capital in the region, the city called Pole, and I should come there and come to the police there. So I said my visa ends on Monday. We were supposed to leave, and he says, never mind your visa, and just come. So I had car. I rented a car in London, England, and we drove to Poland in that time. And so we went. We drove there. Oh, and my father came to visit me from Russia, because you know, we correspond. So he heard that I came, so he came also. So we drove to Opole, a huge building, this police building, and there was two guys again there who asking me all the questions about what I'm doing in Canada and this, you know, all kinds of questions, and this. And then they asked me one question, you know, just between all these questions, they were like talking about in my, you know, my trip to how I ended up in Canada and all this. So I was answering polite. And then pops up one question, you see, who signed this, who signed my telegram, because that's the way we got a visa to Poland, that they sent a telegram, the family sent a telegram from Poland that he's very sick in a hospital, but it had to be a stamp from the police and a signature. So that's what they were going for it. Who let's sign, and of course I wasn't willing to give him this information, you know, and they just. And they extended me visa for another week, so this was the benefits out of this, and gave me the time that we went with the father, Alan, the whole family. We went to Krakow, we went to Proszowice. He showed me where he lived, and there was the cemetery, and told me some story about you know, this.
And did you reconnect closer with your father this time?
You know, yeah. Then I think I kind of had some reserves to my father, because knowing now, you know, leading families, that's not a good thing, you know, to the children, you know, and we grew up, you know, this way. Even we had a stepfather, but it's still, you know, that's having father. My father said that if it's not the war, he wouldn't leave my mother. But the war split them apart. And
did your mother ever re-meet her husband? Did they ever meet each other again?
No. But how their neshama worked, you know, it's neshamas. I have to say, the day my father passed away, I got a call from Vova called me to Vancouver that the father passed away. It was on 4th of Heshvan. And 2006 was and my mother felt in a kitchen in Tel Aviv. He lives in Nazareth Elite, and he attempted many times to. He called her or something. She always hung up, but she didn't want to talk to him or anything. And even so, she felt in a kitchen, broke her hip, was taken to the hospital, and she passed away on 14th of Heshvan.
Amazing.
Amazing, you know. Didn't see each other for 62 years.
Sure.
But she always had a feeling for him, this I know. And my sister, this fella, always tells me, you know, that the mother neglect them because it's only I was the one who counted, and she suffered for the Mira that passed away. She suffered horribly from this.
Wow, Leon, it's incredible. And I have to ask you, what message do you tell your grandchildren, and because you've really gone through so much and you've seen so much.
Yeah. I think I think our connecting to Hashem, you know, I think what made us love Jewish people and Israel again, you know, this is the connection, is what you know, and we met, you know, and we live with Jewish community, and we got involved, you know. It's Vancouver is a small community and very frei. So there's a lots of work there, with and it's wonderful, you know, and what put us on these things is. Aaron went to the school, Talmud Torah, and came home and says, "Oh, we have to do this." That's what he learned in the school. Or we have to do this. And he came once crying because he had a sandwich with honey in it for lunch, and he says he was crying because he didn't know should he sit on the milchik side or on the fleishik side. He didn't know. So a 5-year-old boy, right? So he came crying home, you know. So, you know, and so ourselves, we it's one thing we didn't want to tell him. Listen, home is different, right? We eat not kosher food, you know, this, but the school is different. It's a religious school, so you know, you have to. We didn't want what we did. We said, oh, we need to do this, so we started to do this, you know. And you know, Rabbi Weinberg was in that time in Yishalia, and he made bar mitzvah for me. I was 28. Nice. I have a picture of it, actually.
Will you guys have a video with you later? So here we have Narelle, your granddaughter.
And he had and Chabad came, you know, with this idea to bring Jews back to Judaism. You know, it's not that they trying to force somebody or anything. They live the life, you know, like in New York. You know, their heads were in New York, right? It's not, and the issues like whole of Israel milk, right? You know, that normally everybody were, you know, it was very difficult to get, you know, whole of Israel milk. So, but for them, for them, there was no question, you know, that to lower down, and you know, there was Moshe Feinstein Paskin that you could take regular milk because was really supervised by the government. They wouldn't let some horse milk to get into this, or some pig's milk, you know. But that's what caused, you know, that the Jews were in century had to watched by the so.
I just want to thank you so much. This has been such an amazing, incredible. I'm so grateful to you. From the bottom of my heart, I'm extremely grateful, and
I'm really surprised a little bit for your, you know, invitation to speak about these things, because I felt that I am already second generation pro-Holocaust. Right?
You lived in Siberia. You escaped, and it's the most amazing miracles. It really is miracles that your parents decided to leave. If they would have stayed behind,
who knows? Right?
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
But your emunah, your faith, and what you brought up, such a beautiful family. You can be so proud, and
the idea was, you know, you don't teach them, you do it.
You show.
You show
by example.
You do it, and kids will follow. It's not easy world, right? It's there's lots of things happens, you know. And what we should use the word temptations, you know, the world around us, you know, it's all the internet, and it's everything, you know, and this, but you know, you keep Shabbat, you know, and thanks God the children were small when we got involved. My youngest son, Moshe Shuram, you know. He went already, we were already Lubavitchers, so he went through the whole system, married a girl from Crown Heights who is connected with half of the Crown Heights. It's, you know, relatives. If you meet any Chabadnik and say, what's your name? Oh, Shapiro. Which Shapiro? Okay, so I'm relating to you. My daughter-in-law is related to you. So he's, and he wanted this, you know, to find this kind of girl. And thanks God that she came in, and they have 5 children. He's today live in Florida, and is running the kosher supermarket, which he is involved also. He bought into. It's about 20% of it, and very busy supermarket. And you know what's Florida today?
Well,
that's the place, right? It's if you don't go to Yerushalayim, the next thing is...
well, you're going to be coming here to Yerushalayim, you're going to be making Aliyah, Mizrat Hashem.
Mizrat Hashem this year.
And you're following in your parents' footsteps.
Yeah,
because they came, and it's amazing that they came, and you're following. And then your family will follow.
Yeah, my mother wasn't religious. To her, actually, she kind of disliked and tells him, you know, it's... why you wear kippah? Why you? But she fasted every Yom Kippur. That was something, and turned TV off. So no TV, and she fasted on Yom Kippur. Every Yom Kippur she fasted. You know.
It's been such an honor and a privilege, and I'm eternally grateful to you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much.
So wow,
it's really been. It's an amazing. Unbelievable, really, and I'm so grateful, and should only have nachas and mazel and bracha from your dear family.
Amen.
You have a very special family that you and your wife can be so proud of.
Amen. You know, so yeah.
So Zaidi, tell us, was this your bar mitzvah?
Yeah, this was my bar mitzvah, and I was 28.
Wow.
Why?
Okay.
Why can I go farther down?
This, if you could explain
Yeah.
who's in the picture.
This is my dear friend David Halberstadt, who still lives in the city of Wrocław, and in which there is a grave of my sister in a Jewish cemetery, Blumenfeld.
And where is the cemetery?
The cemetery is in Wrocław, the district called Leśnica, on this, and it's still today.
And he goes often.
He goes often and cleans and this, and his mother is also in the same cemetery. So he's my age exactly. He just the children made him a present, and he give him a trip to Barbados from Poland, first class flight. You know, so he has 3 kids, and
you are lifelong friends. You've been friends for
that's my child friend.
Your childhood friend.
We know each other from the day born. Oh yeah, there's. So my uncle, when he saw me first time, he says, "Oh, I almost fainted. That I look exactly like my." He says it's a copy of my grandfather Moshe Shur. Copy of it. So let's have a quick look if we could find some.
Yes.
This is the bar mitzvah.
Zadie, look, show.
Oh wow. Let's.
And the bar mitzvah was in
I have to mention.
And how old were you at the time of your bar mitzvah?
Mention one person.
Yeah, how old were you at the time of your bar mitzvah in Vancouver?
I was 28.
So this is a picture.
I don't know, maybe. I have to mention 2 people. Which Rabbi Weinberg on the right side and Rav Dubrowski of Shalom, you know, who passed away about 9 years on this, who was the closest friend to me, you know, and really my mentor. Anything I did and that was he's saying or he's doing, right? For example, he never took kapota during the Shabbos meal. So I asked him one day, you know, people making self comfortable. And so I asked him, you know, well, why not? I says, my father never took kapota out. So that's what, you know, everything. My father, you know, my father, I was just like this, you know, and I didn't have that kind of father. So here's the Rav Dubrowski, who was. There is no day goes by that I'm not thinking about him. Really special person. Yeah, and his parents were Holocaust survivors, you know, and they ended up in a DP camp in France, and then moved to New York once because the previous Rebbe moved to New York in 1940s, and so his father set up a family there, and that's what what a mensch this man. So
So Leon, you
Rabbi Dubrowski's mishpacha, not all the kids, because he had 10 children.
But Leon, you coming back and making Aliyah, it's closing a circle, because
it is.
Your parents were here.
And feeling, you know, that we coming back home that's really my and Renya's feeling that we're coming home, so back. And who knows, maybe if we would come directly to Israel, I don't know if it would be.
It's all min hashamayim, it was all meant to be. And
so sometimes you have to go away, far away, and Hashem meets you there, you know, and you know.
Thank you so much, and we welcome you, and we look forward to you coming.
Thank you. You really. I'm just trying to see if there's some more pictures from my.
What are you looking for?
I have to show maybe one of Renya's picture.
Here, I'll find one of you guys when you first got.
Oh, that's not a nice picture. She will kill me for that. Maybe
Here, this one. About my dad with Bobby.
That was still in Poland.
It's still in Poland.
Aaron pictures. She's with Aaron, my wife.
And this is my Sadie with.
And maybe today. It's with Shaito and
it's wonderful.
You know, and
it's wonderful.
And really the most powerful lady in you know, she her
and Cain and her, you've been married for how many years?
57, and she's really role model to the kids, to me, you know. Many more years. Yeah, many more years. She doesn't have. She never would compromise. You know, if it comes to Yiddishkeit.
It's amazing.
And there's the love of Hashem, and she would never compromise anything. You know, so as we progress in time, you know, and slowly we. This is the whole family, which Yeshurun is his bar mitzvah in Vancouver.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, you know, your parents are smiling from above.
Absolutely.
They're really wet nachas.
And both of them end up in
Eretz Israel.
In Eretz Israel, and they passed away at the same time. You know,
it's nisim. It's really minam shamayim, and it's nisim.
I think you really can feel this. You know that. You know, and he, when he came into Nazareth, he kind of turned around, and he loved singing. You know, so he started going in little shtibel, and he became a chazan, and in a shtibel he had a beautiful voice. You know, it skipped me, and with the children, Yeshurun has a beautiful voice, and he does always Yom Kippur, and this he would do the whole thing and for the congregation. Yeah.
This is my grandfather's father and uncle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's this my father, and that was the wedding of Aaron's wedding. That was the time of Aaron's wedding.
It's like
she has more pictures than me.
Okay.
Here's Zadie.
So where is your father?
So this is my that's me. That's a time of Aaron's wedding. It was done by we did in Chabad in Vancouver, and my father came in from Israel at that time. The year was 91, and that's my uncle Alan. We were talking about him, who survived the Holocaust for 4 years in the camps, Auschwitz, Płaszów, Blumenfeld. Yeah, they survived.
And do you have any pictures of your mother?
Oh. pictures of my mother, but I don't think I have in the phone. I was trying to look, but didn't see it. This is picture of Aaron graduation in Princeton University, and that's Yeshurun, Moshe Shurun, my little one. He's now Tyrion Kinahora, has five children. So.
The founder of Shimon.
And so Aaron graduated, and then he went to U of T, and became a lawyer. And, this is my wife that's still in Poland. Picture. Aaron and Shimon.
This was still before, while you were in Poland?
Yeah, that was almost leaving Poland because he was almost one when we left, so he's here maybe a few months.
And your grandmother is there?
Yeah, this is my Bobby.
This is your...
That's the picture already in Vancouver. Aaron and Shimon, they were already at school, and she, in that time in our project, she was covering already her head, but still not sheitel yet. She started wearing sheitel right before Aaron's marriage.
And Nerod, your great-grandmother?
I don't know if I have a photo here. We definitely have photos.
Yeah, I should maybe look again if you have still a few minutes. About this, his grandson, Micah, who his mother passed away, they're the only daughter. Yeah, he passed away, and Micah today lives in Edmonton, Alberta.
And that's with my father and Shimon.
Yeah.
And that's our Uncle Alan.
And it's a lot because of him that you came to Vancouver.
Yeah, that was I didn't know what Vancouver is even, I never heard the city, but he lived there, and
you were very close, you had a close...
We were close, but the war made impact on him, horrible impact. So I don't know if he really was thinking about himself. Oh, that's my three boys, Aaron, Shimon, and Moshe Shura. So there was between him and Shimon is 16 years difference.
And now tell Les what you did for your 80th birthday.
The boys did for me something on my 80th year, which was a Shushan Purim, and we met in a States in a place in Utah, where Shimon has a house there, and we met only 4 of us, and we spent Shabbos together, and I was kind of didn't know how this going to work this out, because each of them is totally different, right? But it was wonderful. That's I'll remember the rest of my life. That's how wonderful was this meeting. Only 4 of us in the place. We made a nice Shabbos. We were hiking on Friday. It was like 2.5 hours flight.
That's Zadie, you and Abba.
Oh yeah, yeah. We were hiking in the mountains on this.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. The Christians Idaho is they called Yerushalayim. You know this, right? Because that's a Mormon church.
The Mormon.
Yeah, for them it's and the place where we were, it's called St. George, and this it's actually they call Valley of Zion, right? And there's a valley there they call Zion. That's where we're hiking.
And I want to ask now, do you think it will be difficult for you to leave Vancouver and come to Yerushalayim or to Eretz Israel?
No, I am very excited about this, but the only maybe regret with something that there's always work to do there. We had guests every Shabbos. We were trying to encourage people, to do what the Jew does, right? And if he meets another Jew, they are brothers, they're family, right?
So maybe
we have wonderful person comes. Her name is Lilian Nemetz, and she's a Holocaust survivor. She's now close to 90, and she her father managed her to take her out from the Warsaw Ghetto, and she survived, and she ended up in Vancouver, and she wonderful. She's a writer. She writes books about Holocaust, and now she's saying, in Blumenfeld, that's my synagogue. She comes every Shabbos.
Maybe she'll come home. She'll come to Eretz Israel.
It would be nice if she come. She has a family there, which is not from her. She has 2 children, but even this invisible progress, I see it, over the few years she comes to us. It is amazing progress. She, because now she knows things, right? And usually, generally, woman is much more spiritual, much closer to Hashem than. A man has to work. That's why we put tefillin and we do this.
Yeah.
And we have to work, but she they don't. The nature of them is, and she, this kind of things I would regret. But hopefully, it's we will. There are families who moving out from and they coming here, so that's.
So maybe your example, people will follow in your example, in your footsteps.
Yeah, because I had a lighting business in Vancouver, but I wouldn't say hobby, but my second job, which I love to do and did without getting paid, was being mashgiach, and I did many hotels, functions, and I supervised many functions and this, and over 40 years. So that was something which I love to do, and that was a way to meet people, and even things, that I was bringing for many years, wine for Pesach, for community, and it was, every year was just more and more, because people knew it was costing me extra to do it. This, people kept ordering. There was Sephardic shows ordering were from me, and
Sure.
And the regular shul, the Sharat Tzedek, was ordering people from there, and last year, for example, that I brought 6 skids of wine. So each skid's about 60 boxes. So you can imagine.
And you do this voluntary? You did it?
Voluntary.
Amazing.
Voluntary. It was my pleasure, because in my work I had a proper, dog, that they could bring it. It was much. I could do it much easier.
Wow.
People came, collected their things, and
it's amazing.
yeah. And this year I didn't do it already. So and daily, my phone was just ripping apart. Leon, are you bringing the wine? Are you bringing wine?
Well, Bezrat Hashem, people will fill in your shoes there, but you will.
I'm sure somebody will.
People will follow in your footsteps coming here, coming home.
Yeah,
So we are very excited for you to come to Eretz Israel.
Thank you.
And thank you so much.
Thank you.